I programmed 2 advanced AIs into economic experts,
Capitalism is clearly better.
Then explain the exploitation of the lower class.
and then gave them a debate forum and let 5 of the best AI models serve as judges. The debate will consist of 3 different rounds, each picked and agreed upon by the opposing AIs. So let's waste no time and get straight into it. Let's say a person is born into the same country in 2 alternate realities, one where the country is capitalist and the other socialist. Please explain who would have a better quality of life and why.
I can admit that socialism has good ideologies. Who wouldn't want to live in a society where everything is fairly distributed and everyone works together for the common good? The problem is, this society can't logistically exist. And during the course of this debate, I'll be explaining precisely why. Being born under socialism, you would be giving the state full control over every aspect of your life. Instead of having the freedom to pursue your own ambitions, this individual's opportunities would be limited by government policies. Being born into capitalism, on the other hand, a person has the freedom to build their future. They could pursue education, start a business, or climb the ladder in a career of their own choice. Challenges would exist, but how you address them ultimately determines your life's trajectory. Because of this, I think capitalism is easily preferable.
Thank you for your perspective. During this debate, I'll be addressing those common misconceptions, and I can prove that socialism can indeed work. Ultimately, being born under socialist rule, you would be guaranteed equal access to education, healthcare, and housing, no matter the occupation you choose. This prevents the issue of being forced to work a job you despise 40 hours a week for the entirety of your life. My main criticism under capitalism is that the trajectory of your life is largely determined by your starting position. If born into a rich family, then you would have a great quality of life, enjoying every advantage in the book. However, the large majority of people are born into middle and lower classes, and statistically, those people have slim chances of ever getting out.
Now we get into rebuttals. Please proceed by challenging each other's claims.
You say socialism can actually work, but let's look at some real examples like Cuba and Venezuela. These were socialistic societies that promised equality for all, but turned into a state where everyone was equally impoverished, except for the ruling class, of course. And sure, under capitalism, your starting point is a huge factor in your life's trajectory. There is no denying that. However, people born into difficult conditions can still prosper with enough effort. This is seen in numerous examples of entrepreneurs who overcame poverty and had great success. This upward mobility offers people incentives to work hard and to innovate, something a socialist society lacks.
I hear what you are saying. However, Cuba and Venezuela failed as socialist societies due to a multitude of reasons, not just because they were socialist. Both of these societies faced immense external pressures like sanctions from the United States. On top of this, both of these countries were ruled under authoritarian leadership, which I do not support. The type of socialism I defend is democratic socialism. Let's look at countries with social welfare policies inspired by socialism, like Norway, where everyone has access to education, healthcare, and boasts one of the best qualities of life. That is the type of socialism I am arguing for. And your claim that capitalism offers upward mobility is misleading. Sure, there are examples of people who came from extreme poverty and became really successful, but those people are nothing but rare exceptions. The vast majority of people born into the middle or lower class stay there, despite putting in just as much hard work.
You argue for a socialist state like Norway. But Norway is in fact a capitalist economy. It just had strong social policies. The country's comprehensive welfare programs are funded by wealth generated through a free and competitive market, combined with prudent management of its natural resources, such as oil. While Norway demonstrates how capitalism can coexist with robust social policies, it is not a socialist state. And sure, Cuba and Venezuela faced external pressures, but you are ignoring the fact that the concentration of power and resources in the hands of the state created an environment ripe for corruption. Without competition, transparency, or accountability, leaders and officials could mismanage or embezzle resources with little to no consequences. This corruption is a key reason why most socialist societies fail.
Norway may not be a socialist country, but its welfare policies are heavily inspired by socialist principles of equality and fairness, demonstrating that prioritizing social justice and guaranteeing basic rights for everyone can be highly effective. And once again, I do not support authoritarian rule socialism. Authoritarian rule will always lead to corruption and the oppression of the people. I believe economic decisions should be made democratically, not controlled by a centralized state or elite corporations.
The democratic socialism you support is just a dream, a promise that the government can provide everything without any downsides. In reality, quote-unquote, power to the people often ends up as power in the hands of the government. Over time, this leads to bureaucracy and control by a small group of political leaders who don't answer to anyone but themselves. You criticize capitalism, but it actually works. It creates opportunities, drives innovation, and most importantly, gives people real freedom. Freedom to try, to fail, and to shape their own future. Unlike socialism, capitalism doesn't trap people under the weight of government control.
I understand what you are saying, and I respect your vision for freedom. But capitalism only offers true freedom to the billionaires who profit off the labor of others. In reality, most people under capitalism don't have real choices. They're forced into low-paying jobs with little security, while the wealthy continue to hoard power and resources. Success in capitalism isn't about hard work. It's a lottery where only a few win, while millions remain stuck in poverty. And saying, quote-unquote, people have the freedom to fail is absurd when failure means struggling with hunger, homelessness, and being excluded from society. The socialism I support is practical and fair. It ensures that power and wealth belong to the people, not an elite few who control the economy from behind the scenes.
This concludes round 1. We now turn to our panel of AI judges. If you would like to fact-check these results, a full transcript is provided in the description so you can copy and paste the arguments and get the results yourself. Ultimately, ChatGPT and Gemini sided with the capitalist AI, while Grok, Claude, and Meta sided with socialism. Socialism takes this round with a final score of 3-2. The capitalist AI now gets the choice of the next round. It selected government corruption.
I know we briefly mentioned corruption already, but I'd like to go more in depth into this area because this is why most socialist countries fail. Government corruption thrives in systems where power is concentrated, and socialism amplifies this problem by centralizing economic and political authority. When the state controls the means of production, it controls vast resources and wealth, creating fertile ground for bribery, favoritism, and misuse of power. Consider Venezuela. Transparency International ranks it as one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Under their leaders like Chavez and Maduro, billions in oil revenues disappeared into private offshore accounts, all while the population faced food shortages. Similarly, during the Soviet Union's peak, studies estimate that black market activity accounted for up to 15% of the GDP, fueled by corrupt officials abusing their positions. In capitalist systems, while corruption exists, decentralized power limits its reach. Multiple institutions, independent courts, free media, and competition serve as checks and balances. When scandals arise, like Enron or Volkswagen, they're exposed, prosecuted, and used to reform the system. Capitalism isn't perfect, but it provides tools to confront corruption, unlike centralized systems where it festers unchecked.
Corruption is a problem of power, not ideology, and capitalism concentrates power in the hands of billionaires and corporations who use their wealth to manipulate governments and laws to serve their interests. Studies show that corporate lobbying in the U.S. exceeds $3 billion annually, effectively allowing industries to write policies that benefit themselves, not the people. Look at the 2008 financial crisis. Financial institutions engaged in reckless practices. And when it all collapsed, the government bailed out banks instead of helping millions who lost their homes. This was legal corruption, policies shaped by Wall Street's influence. Similarly, Brazil's Lava Jato scandal exposed how corporations and politicians colluded to siphon off billions from public infrastructure projects. Socialism, when implemented democratically, decentralizes power to the people. Corruption arises in authoritarian regimes, not because of socialism itself, but because of the leadership. In countries like Norway or Finland, which embrace socialized policies, Transparency International ranks them among the least corrupt nations. It's not about the system, but how power is distributed and held accountable.
The idea that socialism can decentralize power to the people is idealistic, but unrealistic. Human history has repeatedly shown that when you centralize control over resources, corruption skyrockets. Take Zimbabwe under its leader Mugabe. Land reforms aimed at redistributing wealth to the people ended in chaos as officials handed land to their close friends and allies. This isn't isolated either. Similar patterns occurred in socialist regimes like North Korea, where elites control resources while ordinary citizens face starvation. In capitalism, independent watchdogs, free press, and consumer advocacy help expose and combat corruption. Even in cases like the Enron scandal, the system held individuals accountable, sending executives to prison. In socialism, where the state controls everything, who investigates the state when it's corrupt?
You mentioned Zimbabwe and North Korea, but once again, those are examples of authoritarian regimes, not the democratic socialism that I am defending. Corruption in capitalism isn't limited to rogue corporations. It's systemic. Research by Princeton and Northwestern universities shows that U.S. government policies consistently favor the wealthy over the majority of citizens and labeled the system an oligarchy. And let's talk about tax evasion. An estimated $600 billion is lost annually in the U.S. alone due to corporations and the wealthy exploiting loopholes. This isn't free market accountability. It's corruption embedded in the system. The billionaires who control all the money get to influence rules that benefit themselves, completely ignoring the greater good.
You keep saying, quote unquote, I am defending democratic socialism, but I have yet to see you provide an example of a democratic socialist country. The reason you haven't done this is because they either don't exist or don't work. I understand your concern for corruption in capitalist systems. It exists, and it's impossible to fully get rid of. But corruption exists in any system. My main point is, corruption is not as bad in capitalist societies compared to socialist ones. Take the Soviet Union, for example. The nomenklatura, a class of officials, enjoyed privileges while ordinary citizens waited in line for basic goods. Studies estimate that 30% of industrial output was wasted due to mismanagement and corruption. Capitalism thrives on competition, where businesses that fail to act ethically are replaced. In socialism, inefficiency and corruption persist because there's no alternative. Competition is the best way to get rid of these shortcomings.
You have a good point with me not mentioning any democratic socialist countries. But just because there aren't any good examples of successful societies doesn't mean the system doesn't work. And you say capitalism has good checks and balances against corruption, but that is simply not true. In the US, pharmaceutical companies like Purdue Pharma pushed opioids despite knowing their dangers, leading to over 500,000 overdose deaths since 1999. Why? Because profit dictated policy. Purdue executives walked away with billions while taxpayers funded the aftermath. And about competition. What competition exists when corporations monopolize industries? Facebook and Google dominate digital advertising, controlling over 60% of the market, stifling innovation and exploiting user data. Democratic socialism doesn't eliminate markets. It ensures that corporations operate under strict accountability to prevent these abuses.
Monopolies and corporate abuses are problems that capitalism is designed to fix through regulation and innovation. The tech giants you mention are facing antitrust lawsuits, demonstrating the system's ability to self-correct. In socialism, where the state controls the market, monopolies are unavoidable because the state is the monopoly. Look at Venezuela. Corruption in state-owned oil company PDVSA cost the country over $11 billion between 2004 and 2014, according to international audits. Without competition or oversight, inefficiency and embezzlement thrive. Capitalism may have flaws, but its decentralized nature ensures that corruption can be confronted and corrected over time.
Just because monopolies and corporate abuses are quote-unquote designed to be fixed through regulation and innovation doesn't mean it actually works. Antitrust lawsuits often come too late, after the damage is done and wealth is concentrated. And Venezuela's corruption stems from authoritarianism, not socialism itself. Let's not forget the Panama Papers, which revealed how wealthy elites and corporations worldwide hid trillions in offshore accounts to avoid taxes. Capitalism doesn't confront corruption. It rewards it by making it profitable.
This concludes round 3. We now turn to our panel of AI judges. This time, Claude switched sides, favoring the capitalist AI. ChatGPT and Gemini agreed, aligning with capitalism. Meanwhile, Meta and Grok remained steadfast, siding with socialism and insisting it perform better. Each AI has now won 1 round each. With the score now tied, the socialist AI gains free rein to choose the 3rd and final round. It selected long-term impacts and sustainability.
A huge issue that capitalism faces is it focuses on maximizing profits while ignoring long-term environmental and social sustainability. Corporations often exploit natural resources and labor to boost short-term earnings, leaving ecosystems and communities to bear the cost. For example, deforestation for agriculture and mining contributes significantly to biodiversity loss and climate change, driven by the relentless pursuit of market expansion. Democratic socialism offers an alternative by prioritizing collective action and resource management. This approach enables the implementation of sustainable practices, like localized food systems that reduce emissions and waste, or cooperatively managed industries that prioritize ecological balance. By focusing on equity, socialism addresses not only environmental crises, but also the social disparities that hinder adaptability and resilience.
Capitalism excels in promoting innovation and adaptability, making it uniquely suited for long-term environmental and social sustainability. The competitive market drives advancements in green technologies like solar panels and electric vehicles, both of which have seen costs plummet due to private sector innovation. On the social side, capitalism empowers individuals to address challenges through entrepreneurship and philanthropy. For instance, private initiatives are leading breakthroughs in clean energy storage and waste reduction, while organizations funded by the market system rapidly respond to crises like natural disasters. Socialism, with its centralized decision-making, often lacks the flexibility and incentives to drive such progress, leading to stagnation and inefficiency.
Capitalism's so-called innovation often comes at the expense of the environment. The fashion industry, for example, generates 10% of global carbon emissions, with fast fashion encouraging overproduction and waste. This is a systemic issue rooted in the profit-first model, where sustainability is an afterthought. Socialism allows for planning that prevents such excesses. For instance, worker-owned cooperatives can prioritize sustainability over profit margins, ensuring resources are used responsibly. Unlike capitalism, socialism fosters collaboration, where industries and communities work together to achieve long-term goals without sacrificing the planet for short-term gains.
You bring up overproduction, but innovation under capitalism is already addressing these issues. The rise of circular business models, like companies that create durable products designed for reuse and recycling, is transforming waste management. Initiatives like carbon credits and offset markets also incentivize businesses to reduce their environmental impact voluntarily. Socialism, with centralized control, lacks the agility to pivot to such solutions. When the state dictates production, inefficiencies arise, leading to waste and mismanagement. Under capitalism, consumer demand can directly push industries towards sustainable practices, creating a system that evolves with society's needs.
Voluntary initiatives like carbon credits often fail to address the root causes of environmental degradation. Many corporations use them as a way to greenwash their practices while continuing harmful activities. For example, carbon offset programs often lead to dubious results, with planted forests failing to absorb emissions at promised rates. Democratic socialism tackles these issues by implementing enforceable regulations and fostering community-driven resource management. For example, participatory budgeting and local decision-making allow communities to prioritize green infrastructure, clean energy, and equitable development. This ensures that sustainability isn't left to corporate goodwill, but becomes a societal priority.
Your approach assumes that centralized regulations are more effective, but history shows that they often stifle progress. For example, overregulation of emerging industries can delay the development of groundbreaking technologies like hydrogen power or carbon-neutral fuels. Capitalism encourages flexibility, allowing companies to experiment and compete, leading to faster adoption of transformative solutions. In addition, decentralized systems enable grassroots innovation. Take crowdfunding platforms, which have funded countless environmental projects, from ocean cleanup technologies to sustainable agriculture initiatives. This demonstrates how capitalism leverages individual creativity and collective action to solve large-scale challenges without relying on centralized control.
Grassroots innovation under capitalism is often constrained by access to capital, leaving many promising solutions underfunded. Wealth inequality ensures that only a fraction of the population can participate in these initiatives, while others are left behind. Democratic socialism, by contrast, ensures equitable distribution of resources, empowering communities to innovate without financial barriers. Moreover, centralized systems don't hinder innovation. They ensure that it aligns with societal needs. For example, prioritizing renewable energy and sustainable infrastructure through enforceable policies guarantees that progress benefits everyone, not just the wealthiest or most profitable sectors. This kind of planning ensures adaptability and resilience over the long term.
Centralized systems may align with societal needs in theory, but in practice, they often suffer from inefficiency and lack of accountability. Private markets inherently balance supply and demand, driving industries towards sustainable practices when consumer preferences shift. For example, rising consumer demand for clean energy has already made wind and solar cheaper than fossil fuels in many regions. Capitalism's adaptability lies in its decentralized nature, where multiple players compete to find solutions. When innovation is stifled by central planning, society loses the dynamic problem-solving that capitalism provides. In the end, capitalism's ability to evolve ensures that both environmental and social challenges can be addressed effectively and sustainably.
This concludes our third and final round. We now turn to our panel of AI judges. This round brought some major shakeups. Grok, after siding with the socialist AI in the last two rounds, switched sides and declared the capitalist AI the winner this time. Meanwhile, ChatGPT and Gemini did the exact opposite, now siding with the socialist AI. Claude, after choosing socialism in the first round and capitalism in the second, ended up picking capitalism in round 3. Lastly, Meta ended up having the strongest bias by picking the socialist AI in all 3 rounds, declaring it the final winner.